money from the Bureau will do no good.
Someone else killed those policemen.
Shot with your weapon, and you will be blamed for their deaths.
Open up, it's the police.
He's right above us. There's one coming your way. People are scared. We need to get this one. Call for backup now.
It's 2005. We are at the tail end of the PS2, Xbox, GameCube generation, and the Xbox 360 just came out. This was probably the last time gaming felt really exciting, at least to me, because there was still lots of experimentation going on. New IPs, new concepts. Budgets were still not out of control yet, like they are now. So new risky ideas were not uncommon, even from big publishers, such as Sega. And enter Condemned Criminal Origins, a new IP from Sega developed by Monolith, the same devs as Fear. The concept is extremely simple but captivating. The game is at heart a melee-focused combat game in first person and a survival horror too. If I had to describe it in very few words, I would say it's as if Doom 3 and Silent Hill had a child. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit reductive, I know, but that's the best way I can think of describing it. The story talks about a mysterious rise in crime in Metro City, and our protagonist is Ethan Thomas, an FBI agent from the SCU unit, Serial Crime Unit. He was called to a crime scene in an abandoned building due to a murder seemingly perpetrated by the Matchmaker, one of the serial killers he's investigating. This killer abducts and kills young women and then puts them on display together with a male dummy. This was also the first game I can remember doing the whole crime scene investigation stuff a la CSI, although it's very linear, very scripted. At some point in the game, it will require you to perform these crime scene analysis with some forensics instruments, but without much liberty, because the game picks the right instrument for you. You just have to press a couple of buttons and the game will do everything pretty much. You just have to follow the indications on screen. These sections don't last very long and provide some needed variety, and also are useful to build up atmosphere. Also, they give you some context as to what type of criminals you're dealing with, and also forward the plot. The combat is simple but engaging. You can use a variety of melee weapons, each with their own stats like speed, range, damage, and block. To defend yourself, you have to press block at the right time, because you can only do so briefly. So it's more like a parry than a proper block. The more powerful melee weapons will also be required sometimes to get to the next area or to unlock some side content or extra health or weapons. You can only carry one weapon though, so that forces you to make a choice sometimes over which weapon you have to carry. There's also some fire weapons in the game, but they are quite rare and ammunition is nowhere to be found. When you use the ammo inside the magazine, it's done. You can also use such weapons as concussive tools, like proper melee weapons, briefly. But they will break after a few hits. Your other combat options include a kick to keep the enemy at distance and stun them very briefly, and a taser, which stuns enemies for longer and lets you steal their weapons as well. The taser will need to recharge, so you can't use it every 2 seconds, but it does recharge fast enough that it's still possible to use it quite often. The game is not very long. I'll say it lasts. Your first time will probably last around 10 hours. It doesn't overstay its welcome. The story and the setting is intriguing, which is definitely its biggest saving grace. So, during the first mission, you'll find yourself chasing a suspect inside the building, and that will end up causing the death of the two officers that were with you in the building. And the guy who you're following gets a hold of your gun and kills those two policemen. And from that moment on, you'll be on your own as a wanted man. During the story, you will have Rosa to assist you, who is an FBI lab technician, helping you from the forensics lab in your investigation. The other recurring character is Malcolm Van Horn, who is an old family friend that knew Ethan's parents. What makes this game unique is the way all the elements mix together. The combat, the story, the setting, the atmosphere, and the complete sense of solitude and the twistedness that permeates the whole game. The levels are full of violent psychos that want you dead, and most of the time they take place in abandoned and decadent places. The enemies range from psychos, hobos, squatters, and so on. But the further you get into the story, the more weird and fucked up they will become. Now I won't get too much into the story, only what's necessary, because I think if you haven't played it, you should, definitely. And it is kind of pointless to discuss too much the plot, the story, and how it progresses, because there will be mostly speculations. But the thing is that they revealed most of the plot points that were left vague in the sequel. So if you wanna talk about all the plot points, you also have to talk about the sequel, but I'm not gonna do it now, at least. Because this game is one of those cases where a lot of the story was left unexplained, vague, on purpose. So it did create an area of mystery around it. I remember at the time there were discussions about all the possible explanations and so on, and what each aspect meant. That's also part of the game's charm, in my opinion. The sequel ruins, in my opinion, a lot of things by going over the top with some of its explanations and exposition. I mean, at least from what I remember, it's been a while since I've played the sequel. And I mean, a good example would be this series went through the same process that Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal went. Like, if you played those, you know exactly what I mean. The first game was tight, confined in terms of plot, concise. Everything didn't have like a weird over-convoluted explanation. Everything was straight to the point. The gameplay was straight to the point as well. No overcomplications or mechanics that you had to like train, practice to learn, to get used to. It was very pick and play. Meanwhile, with Eternal, they went over the top with the plot. And the gameplay, they made it less immediate, less pick and play, because you actually have to practice the new mechanics a little bit to get used to it and progress through the game. So this is exactly the same thing in terms of gameplay and plot when it comes to the sequel of Condemned. But yeah, I'll talk about it probably in another video. And now, like I said, I'm gonna talk briefly about the story, because the game has two ongoing plots. The main one that sees Ethan investigating and trying to prove his innocence, but also a secondary plot that's more in the background, that is mostly delved into during the loading screens, that tries to let the player know that there's an outside influence responsible for the rise in violence and crime. And this secondary plot will be explained better in the sequel. They will actually show more of this and what's going on. Now, for the things that I don't I don't think work so well, I would say the fact that you can only carry one weapon at a time is a bit annoying. While I think it would have been better if you could have carried one melee weapon and a fire weapon, just in case, to avoid situations where you need a certain weapon to progress, but then there's also a gun lying around and you want to bring it with you, so you don't have to backtrack. And number two, the controller controls on console are fucking weird. To run, you have to keep L3 pressed. So instead of just tapping it once, like you do for example in COD, you have to keep it pressed, and that gets really annoying really fast, because also the other control schemes are no better than this one. There's only 3 control schemes, and in 2 of them there's this issue with the tapping of actually the pressing of L3, and the other one uses L3 to parry. So yeah, it's all the controls are not viable. So I resolved it by using a controller that has back buttons. So I'm up the L3 on a back button and call it a day, because yeah, that's I was not gonna play with that. But I mean, you can also play with mouse and keyboard on emulator as well, so it's not an issue in that case. I mean, it's weird though, because the developers really didn't think that this control scheme would be annoying as fuck. That's a odd choice. Third, the graphics could have been a bit better. This was a launch window game, and it's definitely top 10 worst graphics on Xbox 360, in my opinion. Because, I mean, mostly the character models. Because, like, when you see games like Silent Hill 3 on PlayStation 2, and you see the character models in that game, especially in the cutscenes, and then you take a look at the characters in this game, you wonder, how the hell is it possible? Like, it's like the characters in Condiment look like PS2 characters, while the characters in Silent Hill 3 look like 360 tier characters. It's odd. The effects, light effects, and also atmospherical, environmental effects, and the lighting are okay. You can tell they are next gen for a launch game at least. But I think with a little bit of scaling down, this game would have run on a Xbox original as well, because it really doesn't have a lot going on screen. So I think if this would have run, because if Doom 3 and Half-Life 2 were able to run on the original console, original Xbox, I think this would have been able to as well, with some toning down of the effects and some assets and maybe textures. I mean, all in all, this is a solid game. Another flaw I can think of is the FOV, field of vision. It's not very satisfying, because it seems like you're playing as a horse with your eyes covered. Sometimes it's not very high. I don't know exactly what the value is, but it's not high. It's console FOV at its worst. So it would have been nice if you could raise the FOV, but I don't think you can, even with the emulator. But I mean, all in all, the flaws are not that egregious that will prevent you from enjoying the game. Even in 2024, it's still fun and captivating, especially if you have never played it. I say give it a try. It might surprise you, because it's really an interesting game, an interesting concept. And it really sucks that there's not really an immediate, easy, hassle-free way to play this. You can only play this game on 360, Xbox 360, if you have one, emulation, or the PC version. But the PC version is, you have to tinker quite a bit with it. Funnily enough, the easiest way to experience this is probably with a 360 emulator, if you have a decently powerful PC. I mean, you don't have to have a NASA PC. I played it quite well with a Ryzen 5600 and a 6650 XT graphics card and 16 gigs of RAM. I was able to play it on 1440p at 30 FPS, stable for like 95% of the game. But I guess even if you have a slightly less powerful PC, you can like just lower the resolution plate on 720p and be done with it. You'll probably be able to, even with a less powerful configuration. I mean, the emulation is easy to set up. Maybe if you don't know how to do it yourself, let me know, and in the comments maybe I'll make a tutorial. But it's quite easy. Nothing too complicated. And yeah, this is it. It really sucks that Sega let this series die, because they haven't even re-released the games ever again after Condemned 2 came out. Condemned 2 is not even on PC for some weird reason. So Sega completely abandoned the series, because I mean, Sega being Sega. There were plans for a third game, but everything got scrapped. I don't know what happened. If you Google, you'll probably find the whole story. So yeah, that's it. The franchise is dead, sadly. We'll never get a Condemned 3. But I think at least the first one, it's still worth playing, because it's an interesting experience. The focus is mostly on horror. It's very grounded. There's no over-the-top stuff or cringy moments. It's a very tight and concise experience that everybody can enjoy, as long as you like horror games, of course. While the sequel, it's more hit and miss, but like I said, I will talk about it more if I get to play it again, because like I said, it's been ages since I've played it, and last time I didn't really like it that much. But who knows, maybe this time I will enjoy it more, I don't know. But yeah, this is it. So let me know what your thoughts are, if you've played, if you want to play it, if you need help on how to play it, and all that stuff. As usual, thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye bye. Okay, now Condemned 2 Bloodshot. I'm remaking the whole video because honestly I didn't like how I made it last time. So this one, for this one I had a lot of expectations coming off of the first one, obviously, because the first one, like I've said already, was a very interesting and intriguing game, especially because it came out during the launch period of the Xbox 360. So it gave you that sense of next gen, of new games with new concepts that were pretty intriguing back then, during those years. But sadly, I have to say immediately that the sequel doesn't live up to the hype. It was a rather, not big, but a mid-sized, let's say, disappointment, because some things I enjoyed, others not so much. In fact, like I only decided to keep the original game. I think I still have the original copy of the first game at my parents' house, and no, the second one I did end up selling it, because honestly I don't think it was worth keeping. But yeah, released roughly after 3 years, more or less, after the first one. Condemned 2 Bloodshot is also interesting, because it's one of those sequels that obviously tries to improve, tries to expand on the formula, but sadly falls short in quite a lot of aspects. Like they try to improve things, but by making so they also end up making some of the things that work in the previous game worse. It reminds me in this sense a lot of Ninja Gaiden 2, also for Xbox 360, also because they came out in the same year. They are, I mean, they are interesting but flawed sequels, sadly. So let's start a little bit touching with the story. The story, of course, picks up after the end of the first game. I think it's 11 months after the end of the first game, more or less. Ethan has changed after the experience in the first game. He's living on the streets, it seems now. He has become a drug addict, alcoholic, drunkard, if you wanna call him that. And honestly, from watching the intro, it seems like he passes his time getting drunk, either getting drunk or beating up people or criminals or delinquents. It's not clear what he does to live now. But honestly, he looks like shit. It doesn't even look like the same character, honestly. Because this is one of those sequels that changes everything. They changed the look of the characters and the voice actors. So kind of like they did in Evil Within, from Evil Within 1 and 2, where they changed pretty much the voice actors, the engine, the graphics. So it's here, it's the same thing. Everything is different compared to the first one. Of course, the graphics are better, but honestly, the characters look barely like the same people, which is something I don't like. But whatever. Also, the flickering in the footage is due to... I had some settings on my... I think it was my emulator that didn't like really much my graphics card at the time, so don't mind it. And so the game starts off pretty much with Malcolm Van Horn, which was one of the supporting characters in the first one, sending a post-mortem message to Ethan. But first he sends it to the SCU because he couldn't reach Ethan. And so the SCU tries to find Ethan to give him this message, and that's how the game starts. They end up finding Ethan, and then they start cooperating to see what's going on. I won't spoil much now about the story. Like, this is just the basic incipit. So let's move on talking about the gameplay, which is the aspect that has changed quite a lot compared to the first one. Now, I will touch the most important aspects in this game. It's possible that I may miss something, but just to give you the gist of it, I'll touch at least all the main aspects. The combat has been both improved and made worse. Why I think this? Because it has been expanded in a lot of ways. They added a lot more new weapons. They give you different combat possibilities. You can also use like end-to-end combat now. So you have like actually punches. You can throw punches in this game. And each trigger is associated to one of your hands. So left trigger for your left hand and the right trigger for your right hand. And so you can pretty much do combos now by using the triggers. You block now by pressing both triggers at the same time, which is something I honestly don't like much because it makes the gameplay cumbersome after some time. It's gonna be one of the main problems in the combat. The fact that you have to press double trigger at the same time multiple times, because it is mapped to a couple of commands, of moves. So the blocking also another one that you unlock later. That yeah, make everything cumbersome because you do so many things with the double trigger pressed at the same time, which honestly I don't like. Now you can perform combos, various combos depending on which buttons, which moves you perform. There is a combo list actually. So let's say you do left punch, right punch, and then you press another time right punch, and you get an uppercut, for example. There is quite a lot of depth in this sense, and each combo deals different damage. The fact that now you have a combo list also implies that you have to remember those combos, because otherwise you have to stop the game and go look at the combos every 2 seconds. But honestly, I've personally found that only a few combos are really useful that can be used in actual combat, because most of the time you'll find yourself surrounded by enemies. So it's not something that you can, like, long combos, you won't be able to use them most of the time unless you're one-on-one. One of the changes I dislike the most is the addition of there's like a combo meter in the top right of the screen that fills up every time I think you kill an enemy with a combo. And after this meter is full, at least one bar gets full, you'll enter in a special state which allows Ethan to lock on into an enemy and perform a scripted combo. It's like a grab, but command prompts will appear on screen, kind of like a quick time, which you have to press like the either left trigger or right trigger, and you have to do exactly what the command tells you, otherwise you will drop the combo. But the problem is that these fucking combos, they seem to me that they get activated by chance most of the time, because I think the game tells you have to press double trigger 2 times near an enemy, but a lot of the time I just activate them by, I don't know, even if I don't do that. But the problem, like I was saying before, is that you do too many things with the double trigger pressed at the same time. Because of course if you want to block, you have to press double trigger at the same time. And so there's too many actions tied to this double trigger at the same time command. That's one of the main problems, like I said. And so if you don't do this, if you don't follow the commands exactly how they appear on the screen, you'll drop this combo. But most of the time you'll reactivate it a few seconds later. So sometimes you find yourself like entering and exiting this fucking special scripted combo state, and it gets very annoying because it drags out the combat. Because of course I don't think you do damage if you drop this scripted combo. So it's just a garbage addition, honestly. They shouldn't have... The combat would have been much better without this addition, in my opinion. Because per se the combat has been improved. It's more complex this time. Even though I personally think the original simplicity was very charming and fun. I also do appreciate the complexity of what they were trying to do in this one. But they fucked it up. They fucked it up by trying to add too many things. And it sucks because it could have been very fun, honestly. Like there's a lot of options, a lot of possibilities with the combat. It can be fun and rewarding when it works, but a lot of the time it doesn't. Or at least it doesn't the way I would like it to. Also because these fucking quick times make everything more cinematic, which is something I dislike. I wanna be in control of my own actions. The rest of the combat, has also been changed a bit when it comes to fire weapons, the taser, and also the resources you find. Because the fire weapons will be more prevalent, and now they control more like a regular shooter as opposed to the first one, which they were a little bit cumbersome and not very precise. But here the game controls more like a regular shooter, also because they added a mode which is called FPS mode. I have never played it, but I assume you just use the guns most of the time in FPS mode. So you play the game like it was on FPS, which I don't think it's gonna... I mean, it's fun for the novelty of it, but the combat suffers if it's just an FPS, in my opinion. The melee combat is the main attraction of these games. The taser has also been made an expendable resource, so you can't just spam it like in the first one, even though they still give you a lot of it. Like, you have a lot of taser, and you can also recharge it when you find a locker. You can also... they give you like taser recharges, and they also give you ammunition this time, unlike in the first one, which ammo was not a thing that was present. All the enemies could reload the guns in the first one, but here no, here you find ammunition. So there's definitely a big change in this sense with the combat, the fire weapons. Also, I think I've said it already, you can throw weapons like from the distance, which is we can be very strategic, because you can throw weapons from very far and set some nice combos up by doing that. Another big change also in terms of combat is that the weapons now break after a while. So you can't just use your favorite weapon throughout the whole level. I mean, unless you find another one. Another one of the same weapon. But, I mean, like I said before, there is a lot of weapons. A lot of more new weapons in this game. So they definitely did a good job expanding on this. Because I'm not gonna ever complain in a game if there are too many weapons, as long as, I mean, they serve a purpose, most of them, and they are not shitty weapons. But yeah, they did a good job in this sense. This is definitely not the part of the combat that I am gonna complain about. The worst part I already mentioned. Now, the other big part that has seen an overhaul in terms of gameplay is the investigating sections, the forensics, if you want to call it that. They have been greatly expanded and given much more liberty, because now you can actually use the tools at your leisure. You can, even if you're not in an investigative portion of the game, you can throw them out and use them, which is definitely a great improvement. The investigative part is the part that has seen the biggest improvement for sure compared to the first one. Because in the first one it was pretty much just decorative. It was a flavor of the moment. Here, no, it's an integral part of the gameplay. And yeah, when you're actually in the investigative section themselves, you are given pretty much freedom to explore, to see, to collect clues, and you're given pretty much a bunch of choices from which you have to choose the right answer. And if you do, you get a better evaluation at the end of it. So it definitely incentivizes using your head and exploring the environment in this sense, which definitely is something I like. Now, after each level, you're given an evaluation on how you did, but I don't think it affects anything from what I remember. I may be wrong, but to me, from what I remember, it seemed quite inconsequential. Now, each level, instead, you're gonna unlock different power-ups, which they're fixed. Each level you progress, you're gonna get new stuff, new equipment. The taser is also one of the power-ups you get progressing through the levels. Now there's a bunch of stuff. One of them is one of the things I said I wanted in the first one, which is the possibility to sheath your fire weapon, so you can holster your fire weapon. So you can carry another weapon, either melee or another fire weapon with you. So it's nice that it's something that they have added in the sequel, because I thought it made the original a little bit annoying sometimes, that you have to backtrack to maybe to get, I don't know, a fire weapon that you left behind because you had to carry a specific weapon, melee weapon with you, because you had to unlock a door to progress, which here it's not the case anymore, because you can holster a fire weapon, any fire weapon. So it's definitely a quality of life improvement, even though you don't unlock it immediately after a few levels, but it's the same. And of course they also added more fire weapons to the mix. Not just more melee weapons, but also more fire weapons, which is always nice. Now let's talk a bit more about the story. There's gonna be some spoilers, but first I'm gonna talk about the story on a general level. I will tell you when I'm about to enter spoiler territory. Now, the tone of the game, when it comes to the story, is different compared to the first one, because now the game has more of a comic book feel, in my opinion, as opposed to the first one that was relatively realistic and grounded with its atmosphere and setting. Here, everything feels a lot comic booky. There's a lot of over-the-top stuff. So it's definitely, in my opinion, a downgrade in this sense, because I really like the original being grounded. So this one is definitely something that has been made worse. There is also like some hallucination sections. They were also in the game, in the first game. There were some sections in which you were hallucinating. But the problem here is that these sections are also worse, because in these portions of the game you will find yourself fighting black goo monsters, which honestly, I don't know what the fuck they were going for. It doesn't make much sense. They are tedious these monsters are tedious to fight most of the time. And there's too many of them. So I like I said, I don't know what they were trying to do with these sections. They were added just to pad in the game. I highly dislike them. They are one of the worst aspects of this fucking game. In the first one, they were just almost like cutscenes, and they were pretty short. They didn't overstay their welcome, but here, total downgrade in this sense, both in terms of gameplay, also like aesthetically, because the fucking black goo is such a generic aesthetic that it's horrible. I don't like it. It makes me think of Resident Evil 7, which is something like, I also hate the enemies in Resident Evil 7, the fucking black goo monsters. But yeah. Now let's get a little bit into spoiler territory. So if you don't wanna hear spoilers about the story in detail, skip this part. I'll put the timestamp on the video. Okay, now the story. I mean, I do like the fact that they talked more about the horrors, of course. They went more in depth with them. But I don't know, they made them kind of disappointing, honestly, because they were this mysterious cult at the beginning, like in the first game. But now they are pretty much your generic secret society that controls everything. Every person who has even a tiny bit of influence is an Oro, pretty much. And somehow nobody knows them. The only information about them you can find are on a fucking weird internet site. But nobody else knows them. Which is weird, honestly. Like, at least someone should know them. Like, at least people should be talking about them, like rumors. Especially considering how long they've been around. And also by the fact, like I said, that it seems that most of the figures of authority are Oros. So the mayor of the city is an Oro. The chief of the SU is an Oro. Another agent is also an Oro. The president of the United States is an Oro. There's not an exact list, but they seem to be a lot, even a lot in most positions of power. So it's odd, honestly. How nobody else seems to know much about them at this point. And other than that, I will also say that the fact that they have their secret base on an island in the near the vicinity of Metro City, I don't know, seems very coincidental and forced. Now I don't know if that's their main base or just one of the many, but I don't know, like, how is it possible that nobody is noticing what they are doing? Because nobody, the whole subplot of people going crazy is still a thing in this game. It's progressively getting worse compared to the first game. You actually get updates also on this plot point. But like I said, there are all these devices that emit sound waves that make people go crazy, but you don't really see many people investigating in this sense. Nobody seems to notice. It's weird, honestly. The only ones who seem to be doing anything is Thomas. But I guess it ties into the fact that is Ethan Thomas. It ties into the fact that since the higher ups in society are all Oros, they try to stop people from investigating. I don't know. It's weird. Also, I like the fact that Serial Killer X is still alive. He is in the game. He's not the main enemy, of course, but you will get to see him sometimes. What he's been up to, which is something I like, because I think they were setting him up for as the main enemy for an eventual third game that's never gonna happen at this point. And also there's a cliffhanger at the end. It's where it shows how the president of the United States is also an Oro. It's whatever at this point. We won't ever see a conclusion of this game, so it really doesn't matter. But like I said, the story is over the top. Some things I like, some things I don't. It's whatever. Could have been worse, could have been better. It doesn't matter at this point. One last thing to add, I would say, is that I don't really like I said, the final level, which is the Oro's base outside of Metro City on an island, which is pretty near the coast. Because also it's full of low-tech stuff. They seem to be like a very advanced group. They give you the impression of being this very high technology group, but then you go into their one of their main bases at least, and it's all made of scrap metal, and it looks more like a dumpster than a super secret base. I guess you can say, well, that's their objective, to make it seem, to make it appear inoffensive. I don't know. I just think it's forced, honestly, because their whole concept of being of having higher tech, but also living in this field, I don't think it matches, but maybe it's just me. But yeah, let's move on to the final considerations. Now, what do I think of this game? I think I've already anticipated my conclusions before, but it's a big miss, but also it's a few things in the right spots. The combat would have been much more enjoyable without the scripted shit, in my opinion. The story, I mean, like I said, it's a bit disappointing. The game is definitely less memorable than the first one. I mean, there's a reason people remember the first one fondly, while the second one you barely hear anybody talking about it. There's a reason for that. It's not just because. The second has a lot of flaws. The first one is more simple, but also more tight, more cohesive. The second one has a bit too many misses for my taste. But it's still an enjoyable game. I think you should play both just to get an idea of what they were trying to do. And the combat can be fun, even though, like I said, it's a bit bloated. They shouldn't have inserted the fucking forced QT shit combos. They ruin the combat, in my opinion. And also, the over-reliance on double trigger to do anything else other than blocking. It makes things, like, it renders things complicated, because you have to do many things with those fucking double triggers, like I said before. The story, like I said, it has its flaws. So, overall, if I had to give a score to this one, I will give it a 7 at most. It's an interesting game, ambitious game, but very flawed. The first one I will give an 8, honestly. Yeah, I will say, yeah. I don't remember if I gave a scoring in the video about the first one, but yeah. So, but I mean, in the end, it doesn't really matter, because Sega killed the series, so we're never getting a sequel. We didn't even get a re-release for either game. And at this point, we probably won't ever get one. Even though I really think these two games need a remaster, because they are not really easily accessible. The second one is not even on PC, and the first one you have to tinker quite a bit to make it run. Your best option at this point is just to play them emulated. I don't know if on Xbox they are backwards compatible, but if you have a decent PC, emulation is your best bet to play them, because they run relatively well. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on the first one and the second one, and I'll catch you in the next video. So don't forget to subscribe and to like and to comment. But yeah, bye bye guys.